Welcome to the Shekina Meditation Podcast, created by Shekina community members. Shekina communities are dedicated to creating free devotional spaces of Christian practice for spiritual seekers and travelers around the world. We post Christ-centered guided meditation each week to help you in your personal or small group practice. You can find episode show notes and other information at shekinacommunity.com. Hi everyone, this is Ray. This is episode 65 of the podcast. It's still Thursday, the 5th of March as I record this, so I'm recording a lot of intros all at once before I head off to be away from my computer where I can make these podcasts happen. So yeah, as I record this, I'm just recording all sorts of intros for you today. We at Shekina Garden are on break, and that means different things. Our community is scattered around the world right now. And so our next 6 podcast episodes will be slightly different with shorter intros and guided meditation as usual. So all the good stuff and a little less rambling. We recently returned from Shambhala festival, and these meditations have been recorded there live with lots of travelers and lots of action going on around. So you may hear some different sounds in the background as you hear from the meditation, and hopefully that makes it feel like you're right there with us. And I hope you really enjoy it. So listeners, this podcast is supported by you. And because it's about meditation, we want to keep it ad-free. Our beloved patrons at patreon.com support us for as little as $1 a month, and patrons get extra audio sometimes, and they also get to know that they are supporting a podcast that brings Christ-centered meditation into the world. You can find us at patreon.com/Shekina Meditation Podcast. Another way that you can support us is by rating or reviewing us on iTunes. You can email the podcast to a friend, or you can tell the world. You can sing about it as you ride the subway, but make sure you wash your hands when you ride the subway. Lots is going on right now. Stay safe. Supporting this podcast helps to keep Shekina communities running and free for travelers and spiritual seekers who would like to know about Christ-centered practice. And it helps us know that you appreciate what we do every time we put this podcast into the world. Patrons, you are the very best. You are a blue sky after many smoky, polluted days. When the wind picks up and suddenly we can see the sky and the mountains again. Today's episode is a Lectio Divina on Hebrews 1, verses 1-4, guided by Ro at Shambhala Festival in northern Thailand. It's on location, guys. It's got interesting extra things in it. The meditation will have 3 parts. First, Ro will guide you through some exercises to help you find that quiet and rest and special place of focus in your mind as you come away from the rest of your day. She will read through the verses a few times with space and possibly some questions or some ways to focus on each verse. And then the third part of the meditation is all about processing. So you may like to journal some thoughts if you're meditating by yourself, or if you're with others, it's an excellent time to share, to hear from one another in a circle about what stood out to you and what did you really deeply experience during the meditation. We try to give each person an opportunity to share by using a talking stick or another object to pass, and to listen well to each other, not teaching or correcting as we go around. Let's begin.
So to begin, let's just find a position that we can hold for a little while. There's no rules about staying still. If you'd like to lie down, you may. I find I might fall asleep if I do that, but if you know you won't fall asleep, feel free to lie down. Or just find a comfortable seated position with a nice tall spine. Maybe imagine the crown of your head being gently pulled up by a thread, so your spine is just nice and long. Maybe tailbone is gently tucked under so that you're really grounded onto the floor. And we're just going to begin by turning our attention to our breath. Not changing how we're breathing, but just breathing normally and comfortably. And noticing it. If it feels good to you, your eyes can gently close. Just noticing the natural rhythm. Perhaps noticing the temperature of the air coming in the nose and out again. Perhaps noticing the sensations of movement. What part of your body just naturally rises or shifts as you breathe in and out. Nothing else to do in this moment besides focusing on the breath and noticing. This amazing breath, this gift. We don't work for it. We can't store it up and save it for later. It just comes to us when we need it, flowing in and out, bringing our body what it needs, expelling what isn't needed, feeding the trees, connecting us with what's around us, connecting us with each other. You might like to also notice other sensations in the body. Maybe turning your attention to the feel of your clothing, where it touches your skin. Feeling of that breeze. Maybe noticing the parts of your body that are folded onto each other, or where your body meets the mat. Just noticing all the different sensations that you're bringing in through your skin and through your muscles, through your body. You might also begin to notice quickly parts of your body that maybe are sore or tired, tight. If they're distracting, You might like to imagine sending your breath to that part of your body, just trying to relax it just a little more, if that's available for you today. Maybe just trying to get a little bit more comfort. Let's send our awareness now out from our skin further afield, noticing the world of sound that's happening around us in the festival. Sounds made by humans, natural sounds. See if your mind can just pass from sound to sound, noticing one, then moving on to the next one, and the next one. You might like to play with trying to find the sound that's the farthest away. What's the farthest sound that you can hear? See if you can imagine in your mind's eye what's making that sound. You might like to try to find the closest sound and imagine what that sound looks like, where it's coming from. And this sort of meditation that we're in today is not the sort of meditation where we need total silence, not the sort of meditation that we need to take on a mountaintop, but that we can do anywhere, even when we're surrounded by lots of sounds. We can use those sounds to redirect our attention back to our meditation. If you find yourself distracted by sound during our meditation, you might like to just use those sounds as little alarm bells or signposts that just draw your attention back again and again. And that's the whole part of meditation, just drawing the mind back again and again. It's normal for our minds to wander. It's okay. The practice is all about returning to focus, coming back again and again and again. Not being mean to ourselves about that, just being kind, noticing when it happens, and then coming back yet again. We're going to take a moment now to notice what's happening in our thoughts. You might like to perhaps imagine that your thoughts are like clouds. That you're looking up into the sky, and there are clouds floating by. You can notice each one. You can see what it is, but it needn't bother you. You can just let it float by again, so that's out of sight for now. Then another cloud comes along, another thought. Without judgment, we can again notice it, acknowledge it, and then just let it float by. And just spend a couple of minutes now just noticing what those thoughts are. Thoughts might return again, it's okay. Just purposefully let them float by again. You might like to link this practice to your breath. On each exhale, blowing the clouds until they're out of sight. If there are any other thoughts or clouds that return into your mind during this meditation, you might like to return to this place of just blowing them away with your breath so that all that is above you is a clear sky. We're going to turn in a moment to hearing the words from Scripture. If it feels good to you, you might like to make a physical action that represents to you the fact that you're listening or that you're open, that you're ready to receive. Maybe hands palm upward on your knees or open in your lap, or some other sign that feels good to you. As we turn to these words, we invite the divine to speak to us. And we say, we're listening, we're ready. The letter that I'll be reading from today is called the Letter to the Hebrews. This would have been a letter written to people who were following Christ, who had come from the Jewish faith. Their background would have been Jewish. And this letter was probably circulated through lots of different communities, read aloud to each other, discussed, thought about, copied out many times and circulated. We're just going to read the first 4 verses of this book, this letter. So during this first reading, I invite you just to let the words wash over you. Perhaps looking out for a word that stands out, or a phrase that seems to shine or stand out to you today. You might like to ask the Divine to speak to you today through these words. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our ancestors by the prophets. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son, whom He appointed the heir of all things, through whom also He created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of His nature. And He upholds the universe by the word of His power. After making purification for sins, He sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Having become as much superior to angels as the name He has inherited is more excellent than theirs. During this second reading, I'll read each phrase 2 times and leave a couple of minutes silence in between each phrase. I invite you in the silence to just explore the words with your mind. This kind of meditation is not clearing the mind, but making space so that these words can be explored. They can resonate, maybe bring up images or memories. Maybe again asking the divine for one phrase to stand out to you. Maybe repeating each phrase to yourself, exploring and playing with the words, seeing what happens. Coming with a curious and playful attitude or mindset. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our ancestors by the prophets. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our ancestors by the prophets. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son. whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. Whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. And he upholds the universe by the word of his power. And he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. Having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. During this third reading, you might like to again look for a word or a phrase that stands out to you above the rest. You might like to ask the Divine to speak to you. You might like to ask, what is it you would say to me today? And why is it I need to hear this today? Why do I need to hear this today? Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our ancestors by the prophets. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son. Whom He appointed the heir of all things, through whom also He created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of His nature. And He upholds the universe by the word of His power. After making purification for sins, He sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become as much superior to angels as the name He has inherited is more excellent than theirs. During this last reading, I'd like to invite you to offer back to the Divine any response that you have to these words, positive or negative or otherwise. Any response is fine. If the Divine truly is the Divine, your thoughts are already known, your heart is already known and loved and welcomed. So I'd invite you during this time just to offer back any response in the quiet of your own heart, any response to these words back to the Divine. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our ancestors by the prophets. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son. Whom He appointed the heir of all things, through whom also He created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of His nature. And He upholds the universe by the word of His power. After making purification for sins, He sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Having become as much superior to angels as the name He has inherited is more excellent than theirs. As this part of our meditation draws to a close, I'd like to invite you to begin drawing your attention out from this part of the meditation and back to your body, back to your senses and your breath. You might like to take a few deep breaths one more time. Coming back to your experience of the here and now.
Thank you for joining today. There will be a new guided meditation available each week, so don't forget to subscribe to iTunes or sign up for our newsletter to get podcasts delivered to your inbox at www.shekinacommunity.com/podcast newsletter. Also, you can rate or review on iTunes or sign up as a patron at patreon.com/Shekina Meditation Podcast. Have a beautiful week. Many blessings to you.